It's been a while since I did a review of a new drone. In fact, it was the summer of 2018, and it was for this drone here, the Mavic 2 Pro. And I filmed that in Skiathos in Greece. That feels like a long time ago. It's an amazing drone, it's my favourite drone. Some of my favourite stuff was in Skiathos, and also the stuff I did in the snow for the filmmaking for photographers course. There's so much that I love about the original Mavic Air. The image is pretty nice once you've done a few tweaks and done some work in post to get past that overly sharpened look. The biggest downside for me by far was the transmission system. By using Wi-Fi, I always had image breakup. And nobody likes to lose a signal between the drone and their controller, do they? I got the Mavic Mini a few months ago, and this is a really cool little drone. I just haven't had much of a chance to use it yet because when I got it, I was in post-production, deep in post-production, and then when I finished, the weather was terrible. But I have a new drone, and well, you know what it is, of course, because you can read the title. I haven't looked at it yet. Well, I haven't opened it yet. I did open the box partly, and I haven't even looked at the specs. Let's do it. Cool. It looks so similar to the Mavic 2 Pro, just smaller. Really similar. If we compare it to the Mavic Air 1, yeah, it's bigger. A little bit bigger. Not massively bigger, but it is definitely bigger. It's basically a Mavic 2 Pro Mini Air 2. Mavic Air 2. Let's have a look at the camera. There's obviously a very simple way of taking this off. Well, it's a very secure gimbal protector. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can't read that at all. So that says 48 megapixels, field of view 84 degrees, f2.8, and half-inch sensor. So looking at the specs, there's definitely some highlights on here. The fact it has OcuSync 2, the Mavic Air has Wi-Fi, just Wi-Fi. It was one of the biggest problems with it. You lose connection very easily. Battery lasts 34 minutes compared to the Mavic Air's 21 minutes. That's very good. And the highest megapixels was 48 megapixels for a photo, which is very big for such a tiny, tiny sensor. It does shoot raw photos. It doesn't say anything about 10-bit, but I would be very surprised if it had 10-bit. Slow motion, obviously 4K 60p, which is great because not even the Mavic Pro 2 does that. Only the one that I've got is the Phantom 4 Pro. But it also does 1080p 240 frames per second slow motion. H.265. It has D-Cine-like color profile, doesn't say it has log. Let's have a look at the controller. It's big. It's way bigger. Oh, it feels nice in the hands. Really nice in the hands. I like it. That's really nice. That's so much nicer than the old controller. Ah, it feels really good in the hand. Straight off. And we have a switch for modes here, which is very nice. Tripod, normal, and sport. I love tripod mode. New battery, which of course is completely flat, so I can't even turn it on right now. I do have the Fly More combo, so I've got a bag here. I'm not with it today. I can't open a bag. Oh, there we go. The zip was hidden. Cool. It's a nice looking bag. I'm hoping there's more batteries in here because I've only got the one. It feels heavy enough to potentially be batteries. Now, charger. I didn't get any extra batteries. Okay. Got the props. It comes with filters. That's nice. I can't tell the strength. Where's my magnifying glass? So we have ND 16, 64 and 256. That's so nice to have ND straight off. That's always something you tend to wait for. Okay, so I'm going to charge up the battery now. But I think I'm not going to do anything more tonight because it is quite late. But luckily for you, that doesn't mean anything because it's now the morning. Or to be precise, it's actually the afternoon because I spent this morning getting the original Mavic Air, the Mavic Mini and the Mavic 2 Pro all firmware updated so I could do this little test. And this is where I will be doing that test, in my rather messy garden. You may be familiar with my garden a little bit from my Mavic Pro review, the original one, and I did a little section about tripod mode. It has changed a bit since then. I don't have the jacuzzi anymore. It's been replaced with the catio, a nice safe place for my cats to go outside. This test is just about the Mavic Air 2's image. See what it looks like, have a look at the detail, hopefully not too over sharpened, see if we have some decent dynamic range or not, and check out that compression and compare it a little bit to those other drones. The most important comparison was of course between the Mavic Air and the Mavic Air 2, but it was good to have the entire range of them in here. I can tell you straight off that the drone that did the best in every way was the Mavic 2 Pro, and the worst was the Mavic Mini. This of course was expected. It was a pretty windy day, so it was good to see just how stable they all were. The Mavic 2 Pro was incredibly steady. The Mini, not so much. The Mavic Air was in between these two in terms of stability, but it still struggled. The Mavic Air 2 did fare better, not Mavic Pro 2 stability, but a definite improvement over the original Air. One thing that's a massive improvement is that irritating whine of the Air is no longer present on the Air 2. It's a much lower and less annoying sound. All the drones here other than the Mavic Mini can shoot 4K. The Mini tops out at 2.7K. It also has no picture profiles or raw photo ability, so the dynamic range was clearly suffering in this challenging shot. The Mavic Pro 2 with its 10-bit log recording easily did the best here, holding more of the highlights and shadows. It also has additional ability to tweak the image, plus it has the hybrid log gamma option.
The two Airs both have the normal and the cine-like profiles, but interestingly, the original Air has more ability to tweak the image. You can bring the contrast down, which helps with the dynamic range of the recorded image, and very importantly, you can bring the sharpness down. DJI's images from their cameras tend to be very over-sharpened. The Osmo Pocket, Action and most of their drones all have this issue. It's the worst thing about the image from DJI products. People complained that the Mavic 2 Pro image was soft. It wasn't. It just didn't have the artificial sharpening added in camera. If you want that over-sharpened look, you just do it in post. The problem with over-sharpened images is they look unnatural, and trying to soften them in post rarely looks good. It does need to be done in camera. The Mavic Air 2 has no additional image options. It's either normal or cine-like. You cannot adjust the contrast and you cannot adjust the sharpness. This is a big negative for me. The Air 2 uses the new, more consumer-friendly DJI Fly app, the same one that the Mini uses, but this shouldn't affect things. The options are already very different when you use the DJI Fly app with the Air 2, so I don't get why you don't have the ability to tweak the image like the original Air can. One of the biggest pluses of the Air 2 is the slow motion capability. It can do 4K 50p and 60p, which is a first for the Mavic line, and it looks as good as the normal speed footage. The 120 and 240 frames per second 1080p is okay, it's not great. It does remind me a little bit of the Spark's normal speed image, but as I can't imagine using this mode much, it doesn't really bother me. Photo-wise, the Air 2 is an improvement over the Air because it has this new sensor from Sony, the half-inch IMX586. The sensor uses a different way of capturing light and colour than the old sensor by using a quad-layer colour filter array. This gives it higher resolution of 48 megapixels, but it does require more light. Cleverly, it can combine each of the 4 pixels in the quad array to give it higher sensitivity to make it equivalent to 12 megapixels. It's this 12 megapixel mode that is the standard resolution for photos and also the way the video is captured. But when you use the 48 megapixel option, you can most definitely see a big improvement in detail. Like the original Air, the Air 2 doesn't have much ground clearance at the back, so be careful when you take off. Most likely you'll be able to buy some third-party risers at some point to get past this, like I did with the Air. There's loads of new features that I haven't tried out yet in the Air 2, including 8K time-lapse and some new autonomous features. I don't really use these things much, to be honest, because I like to fly manually and with the obstacle avoidance sensors off, because I like to fly through any tight spot I can see. The battery life is most definitely a big improvement. I was able to stay in the air for easily 25 minutes with a safe amount of juice left to bring her home safely. The OcuSync 2.0 is also a big improvement over the Wi-Fi transmission of the original Air. The quality of the feed to your controller is so much better, and the range is night and day better. The quality of the video is still very reminiscent to the original Air though. The overly sharpened image and noisy blacks is very familiar. You can now record in H.265 as well as H.264. H.265 will give you a much less compressed image, which is a nice big plus. Just when you come to editing it, you do need to convert it out of that, otherwise you're in for a world of pain. If only DJI could stop over-sharpening their cameras, the Air 2 would have a gorgeous image. I really don't think it would take that much to sort this out in a firmware update, but I've said it time and again in reviews of DJI cameras. In fact, the only one I didn't was the Mavic 2 Pro, because it wasn't so over-processed. The rest of them all have the same issue. At least with the original Air, you could bring the sharpness down a little to help, just not all the way because it made the image really quite mushy. You see, sharpness isn't detail. They're two separate things. Let me demonstrate in the raw stills. Because it's raw, I can show you what comes off the sensor. So this is what the image looks like with no sharpening. And this is what it looks like with the equivalent of the video sharpening. You tell me, which looks better? If they can fix this in the Mavic Air 2, then it would be a no-brainer upgrade. That being said, the OcuSync 2.0, the longer flight time, and the 4K slow motion are big pluses. I just really want them to stop over-sharpening their image. Go on, DJI. You can do it. Please?